Welcome to Get Your House in Order, where the Medici brothers, investors and entrepreneurs Chris Auditore and Dr. Philip Zimmerman discuss timeless principles of success, significance and legacy. A podcast for business owners who want to design a beautiful life and a beautiful business, sponsored by the one and only exclusive Medici community.
Welcome back to Get Your House in Order, where we talk about creating a beautiful life and a beautiful business. And today we want to talk about talk isn't cheap, how conversations shape empires. Talk isn't cheap. Chris, why is talk not cheap?
Well, sometimes we underestimate how important words are that we speak to each other, or that people speak into our lives. And the reason I wanted to title this episode with Talk Isn't Cheap, and how empires are being shaped through conversations. If I reflect back on my life, I've had some very crucial conversations that have just given trajectory to where I'm heading. And so let me tell you one of the stories. As a teenager, my parents decided with me that I would go and spend some time in the US and live with a host family. And so as a 16-year-old, I flew over to Boise, Idaho.
Potato state.
Which is the potato state in the northwest corner of the United States. I arrived there. There was a wonderful family. There was a family that we had family relationships over for many years, the Johnson family, and they took me into their home, and I went to an American high school. And obviously this was a dream come true in many ways, also a new experience. I'd never lived somewhere else. And so I was very thankful for this environment. I absolutely loved it. It's at the Boise comes from the French word les bois, which means the trees. So it's actually a dry area there in Idaho. But then there's this whole valley covered with trees, and that's why it's called Boise. And it's at and then it's connecting to the Rocky Mountains. So there's incredible things you can do there. Skiing in the mountains. We went skiing up in McCall, and in Sun Valley, you can go whitewater rafting. So there are lots of fun things. So it was a great experience as a teenager. But if you ask me what really shaped me, it wasn't just a nice experience as a teenager, but some very crucial conversations that I had during this episode. And there are kind of two people that I want to highlight. Number one, my host dad. His name was Dennis. He was heading an insurance company called United Heritage in the valley there of Boise. He took time every day, almost every day, that after school, when he got home from work, so he got home from work, I got home from school, we would sit down in the living room and play a round of chess together. And he was a good chess player, and I often lost, but after some weeks I kind of caught up with him, so we were kind of tete-a-tete, and obviously chess is a great game to play. But what I remember is the conversations we had during that time. And if you're 16, you're trying to figure out life, you're trying to figure out what to do, and you're very much shaped by your own family. So, I can talk lots about our parents and how they have shaped us, but it was really good for me to have a conversation with another adult, a businessman, a business leader, and learn from him. And he was a very successful business leader, Dennis. And to make a longer story short, I think because of him, I studied law. The career decision, what subject to study at university, came because he kind of opened up this category of, telling me about his life and why he had studied law and how this had kickstarted his career. And in fact, he even got me so interested in this whole subject that at the end of my year, he took me on a trip to the east coast of America, where we did kind of a tour to Washington, D.C., and then to all the historical sites. And he gave me the tour as a lawyer. Kind of, how did the American Constitution come about? How was it shaped? What's the philosophy behind it? He took me to the House of Senate in Washington, D.C. We had a meeting with a senator, and we, and that was also a lawyer. And so, long story short, conversations shape our lives. And Dennis shaped my life, and everyone knows me that I went to university. I'm a lawyer by training. My whole brain functions like a law brain. I've never practiced law really, because I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always been a business guy who developing companies. But this very important decision came out of a conversation. So that's one of the things. I've got another impact for sorry. I can talk more about that with my teachers. There were some high school teachers. They were graduates from Stanford University, and somehow they took interest in this foreign exchange student called Chris from Germany. And not just in the classrooms, we had some good conversations, but they actually also invited me to come to their home, and play with their kids and spend some extra time outside the classroom. And I can literally say that these teachers, high school teachers, have shaped my life. In fact, so much that a couple of years ago, I invited them to come and visit us here after 25 years here in Spain, in Mallorca, and we spent a whole week together. And I invited them and hosted them, and I literally came up with a list of 10 things where I said thank you for telling me this and that, and guiding me on various principles, and they had no idea that they had shaped my life like that. Well, I think they had some idea, but we hadn't been in touch for 25 years, and then we met up again, and I could literally point to the lessons that I learned. So conversations are for me very important. And how do where do we create the realm for conversations? And obviously, this is a business podcast to business owners and entrepreneurs. We're all very busy with a lot of things, to-do lists, emails, meetings, and yes, we have a lot of chit chat. We have a lot of communication, strategic conversations. But I want to talk today here about kind of where do we have the space, in a sense, for offsite conversations, where it's not just the next strategy, it's not just kind of the next item that we need to work through, but really kind of the longer perspective of life. Because I know, and I can talk about some of these other conversations or over the course of my life that just have helped me, that have literally helped me, shaped me, and guided me forward.
What do you feel like is made the difference in these conversations that you still remember to this day and you get excited about just thinking about them, compared to the 1,000 conversations where or the talk was cheap, and you don't remember that? What's the difference?
Well, I think location makes a lot of difference, and time. So let's talk about location. There's something sacred about going offsite to a place. And for me, I just talked about me leaving Germany, going to America. It kind of opens you up. If a conversation can be very different, whether you have it at home, at your office, at a coffee shop, or on the other side of the world. I don't know why that is, but it's very strange. And so, in fact, that's one reason why I tell people to go and travel, because it opens up your mind, and so location is important. Where do you have conversations? I mean, in business terms, lots of companies, they go and do offsites for their leadership meetings, their executive meetings. There's a reason why we do that, because you can have a different conversation, let's say in a resort, at a lake house, or up in the mountains, than you can have in your boardroom. It's just a different kind of conversation. So location is extremely important. And number two, time. Now, most of my meetings and conversations are framed. They have a beginning and they have an end. They've got, 30 minutes. I even have meetings for 15 minutes. I've got 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. Okay. Now, the life-changing conversations that I've had all were longer than that. And so when do we take time? When do I take time out of my busy life to have these longer conversations? And who do I want to have that I'm talking to? So it's not just any conversation. It's not just any kind of counterpart, but literally sitting down. I had a mentor for many years who was an architect from Guatemala, who also did his doctorate in organizational leadership. And he was living down in Switzerland. And I had literally asked him, we had met at a conference, I had asked him whether he would become my mentor. Just his personality and his insight, at the conference when I listened to him was very insightful. His name is Gustavo. I asked him whether he would be my mentor. And probably twice a year, I would drive for 4 hours to go and meet with him. And every time he would clear his calendar for 1 day. And we would spend a day together. Now, I can't even tell you how important these meetings have been to shape my character, my personality, my outlook. So I believe location matters and time matters.
Well, one of the things that last year, there was kind of one of my things that I kind of wrote down as a lesson or a new revelation was that I want to be more intentional about what I want to get out of a conversation, or what do I want to deliver, or what is the end result, the objective of a conversation. To have and get that right. So in the morning when I look at my schedule and I look at, okay, what do I have on my list? Who am I going to talk to? What's the result? What's my ideal outcome that I want to have? And that question alone really helped me being much more intentional going into a conversation and knowing, okay, this is the outcome. I have your son, your youngest son. Every Thursday evening, I have him, on my couch for a mentoring session for actually a year.
Which I'm very thankful for that we've set that up.
We made the decision for 1 year. Every Thursday evening, for an hour, he comes to my place. If he's early, he can play with my kids a little, and then we talk for 1 hour about life and about things that are important to him and the questions that he has, and the questions. Okay, what do I want to install? What do I want to give him? Now he will come with his agenda, and I will go there. But at the same time, I want to ask, okay, what do I want to leave in him? So that he takes something away from this. So sometimes, yes, you need a lot of time, but sometimes even just being intentional. What do I actually want to give in that conversation, or come to as a result or an objective, can be really helpful.
Do you have any? I mean, I shared the story of some of my teenage conversations that I had that really impacted me. But do you have any kind of conversations that you look back on that say that have really helped you in your development?
Well, I feel like our personalities are a little bit different there. So I kind of always joke around that you develop your thinking as we talk. I develop my thinking before we talk.
That's actually true.
And that is a personality trait that is really good to know in the sense that, hey, when Chris wants to talk, he wants to actually think through with me on something. When I want to talk, I have thought through something, and now I maybe want to get his perspective. So he might be changing his mind completely from the beginning to the end of the conversation.
That can happen. I changed my mind.
And so my mind also changes, but it's through a longer process. So as I was listening to you, I was going in my mind, when were these conversations? So I have these conversations, but they were part of a bigger process, because I'm more an introvert. I take things through a process, and so if there's a life change that I'm really thinking of, I actually put down a list. Who do I want to talk with? For many years, our grandfather was always on that list. Didn't matter where in the world he was at the point. It was to say, okay, there is a big decision, and even if I haven't talked to my grandfather in months, because we live in the same city, sometimes even in the same country, sometimes not even in the same continent, I always knew I would call him up and said, hey, I need 2 hours or something, and he would always make time on the same day if I would need to talk to him. And so he was always of the process. And then there was somebody else, normally also somebody from our parents we talk, but then it's maybe something more specific. So I kind of take it through a process of saying, oh, I'm sensing, my intuition senses that there needs to be a change. Okay, let's give this some thinking time, and who do I need to think this through with, and who do I want to ask about? Yeah.
So I think that's actually a good exercise, is that we need different kinds of people to help us on our thinking, and we do that through intentional conversations. As you were speaking now, I'm thinking like, who do I call up? This reminds me of a friend that I have. His name is Daryl. He lives in the United States, in Tennessee, and I think we've been friends now for 8 years. And I think 5 or 6 times over the last 8 years, I've literally taken a plane, flown up to Atlanta, hired a car, drove up to meet him. And to hang out with him. He lets me stay at his place. They've got a beautiful home. I get to know the family, and so we spend some time together. But the reason I've gone there is because he's got some wisdom that I don't have, and that I want to tap into. And so and he's so gracious, he's so generous with his time, that he really takes the time to talk with me, and we smoke cigars together, and I know, as part of the Medici community, we have this whole tradition that when we get together, there's always some cigars. I take people with me to the cigar rooms. We buy cigars for everyone, and actually last year, even my New Year's resolution was to smoke more cigars, and the reason was I was reflecting on what was best in my past year, and the answer was when I had a cigar with people, kind of after dinner, or on a patio, and we were just having a good conversation. That these were the best times of my past year. So when I came up to my New Year's resolution, I decided, well, I want to have more of these moments, so I need to smoke more cigars. I know most people...
That was your strategy.
That was my strategy. Most people decide to smoke less on New Year's. I decide to smoke more, because I want to seek out these conversations. And so we're talking to a business community here. And for me, this whole idea is you need to make a list of who are people that are smarter than you, further along than you, better than you, wiser than you, and how can you go and visit them and spend some time? How can you get access to them? Because it can really help you in your development.
Well, I think there are 2 different categories. So one category is really to say, okay, I'm in a moment where I'm either struggling, or I need to make a big decision, or I need a change. Then you go through a process of really thinking through, okay, who do I want to talk to? Who do I want to get insight with from? Now, the other category is, and that you hinted, and we kind of mixed the 2, is to really have some people where we talk about things that matter. I mean, that's the feedback from the Medici community, that business owners kind of say, yes, normally I go to a conference and it's all about business, but this one is about life and about what matters, and I feel like I found my tribe, I found the people I can connect with, because because they are kind of structured conversations that are about things that matter, not just to solve a problem in the here and now. Now, it might help in the process of solving or giving you a new idea, but it's really about talking, discussing, and the whole idea comes out of the Platonic Academy that you write in the book. Maybe you want to talk a little bit more about that here in a second, because that kind of a thing, to come together and discuss about important matters and philosophy, really can feed the soul on a level that all of a sudden you can have a life quality that you didn't know before. So I remember, some of my best moments in life was when I was a student in Switzerland, and every evening around the dinner table, we lived like in a place with different guys there sharing an apartment, and every night we would be talking until late into the night about philosophy, about things that matter, about how do we want, what are our dreams, what do we want to set up, and it fed the soul on a much different level than than just a nice strategy to solve a problem would. So talk more about the Platonic Academy.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things that I discovered with Cosimo de' Medici is that he actually created a space for philosophers to come to his home and to have philosophical conversations in the evening. Now, remember, after the Middle Ages, Cosimo de' Medici lived in the 14th, 15th century. So we're after the Middle Ages, where, some people call it the Dark Ages, where there's a rebirth of society, now termed the Renaissance. So the Renaissance is the rebirth of the ancient philosophies, ancient ideas from the Roman times, from the Greek times. And so Cosimo, actually, as a business guy, was one of the advocates to, rebirth society through philosophical conversations. So he birthed at his place the Platonic Academy. Now, goes back to Plato. Plato had these philosophical conversations that he framed with his students, where they would discuss beauty and virtue and life and all these big categories of philosophy, and in a sense, theoretically. And so for me, it was a huge surprise that a business guy, a banker like Cosimo de' Medici, who was, became world famous because of the banking empire that he set up, organized philosophical evenings at his house. Why did he do that? Why did he do that? What is the practical outcome? And the answer is, there is just something. If you engage in conversations that are not just about the here and now, but about the larger ideas and concepts of life, that you somehow draw something back to the here and now. And so he designed that space. So one of the questions that I ask business guys is, where do you do that? Where do you engage in these kind of conversations? And one of the greatest joys that I now have is that I go on a regular basis to Florence, and I invite business people to come with me. If you're part of the Medici community, you can sign up for that. And I can't tell you, we have 2 days in Florence, and we're at my place. I'm hosting, and we have these incredible conversations, and the feedback is through the roof. Everyone after these 2 days says, Chris, this is the best thing that I've done over Christmas. Some people wrote to me that the best thing that they did last year was to come to Florence and to have these conversations around business and life and family and strategies and art and architecture, all these things that we discuss. So I love to host that. And in fact, to be honest, my biggest joy now is because I'm not running actively these the companies. I've got more than 20 companies set up. I'm a true investor, business owner that is just kind of needs to make sure that things are running. My biggest joy now is that I can have these conversations and give input to people on a whole nother level. I mean, that's one reason why we've created some masterminds in the past where we take people off-site and we get together on a regular basis throughout the year, and we basically have these conversations because, the busyness of life just, takes that away from us. So I want to be very intentional of creating that for my own betterment.
Yes. So if people are interested in kind of coming to Florence with you, experience that, what do they need to do? Who are we kind of looking at joining the community?
Well, I mean, the Medici community consists only of business owners and entrepreneurs. So you need to own a business in order to be part of the community. You can't be on anyone's payroll. You really need to be interested in both in personal development as well as in business development. So we basically have framed it like that. So it's all about, I've seen lots of programs and lots of communities where it's about leadership development, and lots of people pay for leadership development for executive teams, and there's a lot of stuff. But who actually just speaks with and for business owners? It's a special kind of breed that I've discovered. I've always been that. We've always been that. We've never been on payrolls. We've always been setting up ourselves. But in a sense, it's also a very lonely place. Okay, because you're always kind of the top of the pyramid. You always have people that are looking towards you, and you need to call the shots and so it's just incredibly liberating to find some other peers where you can have some conversations. And so we have a process that we take people through who are interested in joining the community, and then we have various things throughout the year: a conference, a gathering, experiences, calls, and a few different things where we just frame the conversations and we have them, and it's a learning community. I mean, this is and that's why I feel as a student myself. So you and I, even though we're the chief facilitators of that, I feel it's like the greatest privilege because we get to learn from other very, very smart people. I mean, even at our conference, we don't have any outside speakers at the conferences or at the gathering because, we have incredible people in the room. So it's really tapping into each other's minds, experiences, wisdom to be growing ourselves and obviously also our companies. I mean, we want people to really be successful.
Well, in the beginning of a company, you maybe need to be so focused on just getting the ball running, the momentum, and the revenue up. So you're so focused, and so I normally tell people who are interested in the community, if you're in that sphere, if you're in the first year of running a business, the Medici community is not for you. You need to kind of have a look on how do you actually stay so focused and just what you need to do in your industry. But once you reach a certain amount of success, once you are actually, the ball is rolling, having the insights of people in other industries, other countries, from art, from history, from strategies that you normally are not introduced to if you're just staying in your own silos. That can be the game changer. That can not only just put 10%, a revenue increase, but that can actually get you a whole new idea of what your business can develop into, or what your life should actually look like. Because you realize that people set up their lives, the motto is creating a beautiful life. And for each of us that looks different, but learning that, how other people do it very practically can just be a big difference. So if you are interested, we're at the end of our time today, but if you're interested in thinking and discerning, seeing, hearing a little bit more about the Medici community, and we can have a look at if you are the right fit, just go to medicilegacy.com and you can sign up there somewhere on the website for a discovery call, and we'll just have a look if this can really add value to your life and your situation. If you want to get the book Medici, Get Your House in Order, you can go to medicibook.com. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do so anywhere you listen to. But we're excited you're part of this journey. Thank you.